Yesterday, Barack Obama announced that all Americans should reach out and help others. In part, comma, Obama's request has been met in the sense that one group has done extraordinarily well. He must have realized that only a couple days ago, his Bureau of Economic Analysis announced that third quarter profits on an annual basis amounted to $1.66 trillion, a record for the United States. So we see that the country is helping at least some of us, but at the same time, others are told they must do with less. Social Security recipients, Medicare recipients, workers, schools, and virtually every agency that depends in any way on public support is expected to cut back. What is this austerity about? Why has austerity and hysteria combined to create a period of austerity, not just in the United States, but in Europe as well? But why in Europe are people protesting, and protesting with a certain degree of militancy, while here the anger has been channeled into the Tea Party? In my earlier discussions, I mentioned about the fact that, to a great extent, the United States, since the end of the Golden Age, has been moving almost inexorably toward a serious depression. That was the subject of my book, The Confiscation of American Prosperity from Right-Wing Extremism and Economic Ideology to the Next Great Depression. The book appeared in October 2007, just as the stock market peaked. The basic insight of the book was that, in fact, since the end of the Golden Age, the United States economy had ceased to be producing nearly as much surplus as it had in earlier times, and that capital had become more and more parasitic, depending upon benefits that were unnecessary to maintain high profits before. Benefits such as the destruction of the union movement, elimination of inconvenient regulations, government handouts, and the like. Eventually, as these profits depended more and more on consumer credit, the system became untenable. What we had was a crisis, not a great crisis like the Great Depression, but a serious crisis. One that people might have expected to have brought about some sort of political awareness that would have called for a more equitable tax system, a better distribution of wages and income, and even a more open government. Instead, we got an intensification almost of what we saw in the government and in business even before the crisis hit. Some things should be obvious. If you have a problem with budget deficits. Generous tax cuts are not necessarily the best prescription. If you have people who are unemployed, you might think that tax cuts might do something positive, but then you should forget about the deficit. But then again, study after study shows that tax cuts are relatively ineffectual in stimulating the economy. Government spending is much more effective. And that government spending becomes doubly effective if it is designed to produce real tangible benefits, such as anybody can see walking around a major city of today, looking at the benefits from the activities of the New Deal. Bridges, schools, museums, virtually every kind of infrastructure that makes life better came from the employment of the unemployed in producing something productive. We don't see that today. Instead, we hear that we must dismantle Social Security, Medicare. We must treat teachers as casual workers. We must do anything whatsoever to make business more effective. And while taxes are not supposed to be increased by any stretch of the imagination, we see a different kind of taxation spreading through the country, in which states and local governments rely on fines and penalties used in order to collect revenues, whether they're parking tickets, speeding tickets, fees for things that should be public services, all along with cutbacks which are helping to balance the budget. All the while the economy slips deeper and deeper. In a country as patriotic as the United States, one might see how all of this is contributing to making our country decline even quicker. We saw a great signal of this a few weeks ago when the President of China shook his finger at the President of the United States, telling him it was time to get his domestic economy in order. Historically, we have been accustomed to seeing our president doing the finger pointing. Those days may be past, although the U.S. still has a mighty economy. We may be coming out of the recession gradually, slowly. We may see slight improvements in the economy. But unless the systemic work is done to make a stronger, more rational economy, things will get worse, and a more serious crisis will be just around the corner. Why then is it so difficult for anybody to understand what should be obvious to anybody with an ounce of sense? Why can't people understand that anytime you cut back support for the economy when the economy is weak, you're risking setting off a major crisis? We see from the experience of the European countries who have gone into austerity more quickly than we have, the results have been very unattractive. Why then should the United States follow the same trajectory? So now we go to quantitative easing. That is, the government itself can't do anything to make the world better. In fact, Obama is rushing headlong into accepting and embracing some of the worst ideas of the reactionary Republicans. Not the kind of Republican Party that one has been accustomed to, but a crazy, unhinged group that will stop at nothing to strip the government of any powers whatsoever, except to spy on or control the public. All this is supposed to represent freedom. Freedom from what is never specified. What then remains is a great challenge to figure out how we can make this clear, how we can get above the noise that seems to be doing, the noise that seems to be so effective in capturing the imagination of people without enough understanding of the economy to get some sort of excitement over the Tea Party or that sort of nonsense. Why can't we do a better job? And the answer is, of course, we have no real dream that we can present to people, only that we can make things less worse. How we go about making what we have to offer more attractive is a challenge that so far eluded most of the people associated with the left. Economics should be an area where we should be able to make some progress in explaining the mechanics of how the economy works. But so many of the economists themselves, in hopes of better positions, promotion, or even retention, are offering very little help. So this is my quick little jaunt into this territory. My conclusion with all of this is that we have done a very, very poor job of communicating what we have to communicate, of showing how this present system, this present political climate, are all building up to something far more extreme and far more dangerous than what we see today. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but my bet would be that it's going to be very, very bad for all of us. So that is my Thanksgiving message for today. And thank you very much. Goodbye.